very much. Let's bring in CNN national security commentator Mike Rogers, former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin joins us now. Mr. Chairman, I want to start with you. This IG report has been a long time in the coming. I think that the speculation is it's going to be very tough on James Comey. Shimon was just saying it there. In how he handled the Hillary Clinton email probe, what are you looking for specifically, and what questions do you think this will answer?
Well, for the first part of this, and all that really sharp-edged partisanship that's been coming off of Capitol Hill on who did what and when, this probably will be the one that calls the balls and strikes on what actually happening. Inspector General Horowitz has a great reputation. I think this will be probably the definitive argument on what happened. I don't think it's going to be good for the senior levels of the FBI, unfortunately, and I don't think it's going to be good for the DOJ. If you look at the way they're trying to warm up the framing of it, I think there are lots of bad decisions. Criminal decisions, probably not, but bad decisions, probably a lot of them.
So, Jeffrey, we talked a little bit, but I think we should play it again, of what Attorney General Jeff Sessions alluded to when he was asked about what he's expecting to see in the, or maybe what he has actually seen in the IG report, because he basically is saying that the public's perceptions may not be borne out. So here is the Attorney General. Listen to this.
I think it'll be a lengthy report and a careful report. It will be released soon, and I think it will help us better fix any problems that we have and reassure the American people that some of the concerns that have been raised are not true.
How do you interpret that? It will reassure the American people that some of the concerns we've heard about for all of these weeks are not true.
Well, I think that's an example of the Attorney General trying to re-ingratiate himself with the President. I think the big message that the President will certainly get out of this is, I was right to fire James Comey. That I fired James Comey because he was incompetent, because he was dishonest, not because I was trying to disrupt or interfere with the Russia investigation. I think that will be a message that the President will certainly take from this report. And that will be something he will really welcome on his birthday.
You know, it is his birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. President, 72 years old today. Mr. Chairman, if I can ask you about Robert Mueller and some news we learned overnight about the president's legal team. We heard he was on the phone on Air Force One on his way home from Singapore trying to plan out what to do next. Rudy Giuliani claims they're 1 week or two from deciding whether or not they're going to sit down for an interview. The president will sit down for an interview with investigators or fight it, which would mean a subpoena, potentially, that could go, be fought all the way up to the Supreme Court. I know you actually would like to see a conclusion here. You think this has been going on for a long time. But isn't part of this in the president's court? Doesn't he need to get off the pot here and just either sit down for an interview or fight this? They're the ones who've been dragging this out.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there. Listen, the president has been doing the job of president. I worry about the office of the presidency. Take out what your feelings are about Donald Trump. This has been going on really since he's taken office. There is lots of offshoots of the original intent of the investigation, all of which I think are fair game, by the way. I don't think any of that should be off the table. I just worry, what are we doing to the institution of the office of the presidency? And I do think they've got to wrap it up. And I think if the president decides he's not testifying, and by the way, if I were his legal counsel, I would say never, no way. He's a big personality, and as a former FBI agent, you love it when big personalities come in for those interviews, because you can get them to say things they probably shouldn't be saying.
Why?
Because that self-confidence can work against you. It works for you in a lot of circumstances, but in a case like that, when you're talking about possible criminal violations, and again, a perjury charge, we called it the 1001 investigation, lying to an FBI agent. Boy, you can really screw those. You can get to the point of that pretty quickly by testimony of other folks of which you don't know when you walk in the room. So I mean, I would argue, why would you go in that minefield? I wouldn't do it if I were the legal counsel. And I think Giuliani is doing the right thing. He, as a legal counsel, he's setting up the argument. You're either going to agree to a very tailored set of questions, which I'd be surprised if Mueller agreed to, or we're gonna fight this thing. We're gonna go on, and by the way, he's going to be president of the United States. So I think At some point, we have to come to a conclusion on the Russia portion of this and the collusion part of this, which I think is where the president gets wrapped up in it. It needs to come to an end just for healing the nation. We've got elections coming up. I worry about the institution of the office of the presidency in this thing. And here's my biggest fear. If we don't kind of bring this thing to wrap up, every party who takes the presidency will be subject to some kind of a crazy investigation. I worry about that because this becomes ingrained in the political nastiness of this town. And I think that's very unhealthy for the country.
Jeffrey, what do you think about the length of the Mueller investigation? Do you think this has been unusually protracted?
No, I think it's been short by white-collar standards. I mean, he was appointed in May, starting from absolute zero, and it's just a little more than a year. These investigations take time, and look, I mean, the Trump lawyers have been jerking Mueller around for months about this interview. I mean, it is not that complicated a decision about whether he should testify. It's how long will the interview take place? What are the subjects that will be covered? Where will the interview take place? It is not that complicated. And Rudy Giuliani has been saying we're going to have a decision on this shortly since he was hired. I mean, I don't think you can blame Mueller for the fact that the White House legal team has just been jerking Mueller around on this question. And, it's got to be resolved one way or another. And you can't blame Mueller for how long the Trump team is taking.
Jeffrey, quickly, Michael Cohen switching legal teams right now. What do you think that tells us? Do you think he's facing new pressures to maybe, cop a plea and cooperate?
I don't think the switching of lawyers is all that significant. I do think that he is under enormous pressure to cooperate because every defendant facing federal charges, if he faces federal charges, faces a lot of pressure to cooperate. The U.S. Attorney's Office doesn't mess around. They got a search warrant to search his office. That means they have probable cause that were crimes committed there. They are going to be leaning on him heavily, regardless of which lawyers he has. And, Michael Cohen is in a world of trouble.
All right, Mike Rogers, Jeffrey Toobin, thank you.